Welcome to Conversations with Courageous Educators. I'm your host, Luke George, and today I'm speaking with Stacie Skehan, an educator whose superpower is curiosity followed by active listening. She believes understanding people is key to improving any situation. With her superpower, she developed a strength to co-create school communities not based on one or a few scheduled meetings, but a commitment to develop a level of trust one person at a time. Lean in and learn from Stacie as she shares her values and beliefs that will inspire you to continue to make a difference in students' lives. Welcome, Stacie Skehan.
Thank you.
How exciting.
I know, right?
At last, we get to meet person in person. How cool is this?
Very cool.
Now, the interesting story about this, in this room where we are right now, which happens to be at Lockridge Primary School, which is where I interviewed the then principal, Mike.
Mount Bryson.
Just checking.
Yes.
And it just so happens that Stacie is in here for a little bit just to as a principal. But it's where Mike actually said, you should do a podcast live. Yeah. So I used to do them on Zoom.
Okay.
And it's so much better. So yeah. Here we are again, I suppose, where we started, so it's so cool to be here. So let's start with Stacie's story. First question. Now, after graduation, you were sent to the outback of Australia, Northern Territory, West Australian border, in a remote community called Warnkurna.
Warnkurna, yeah.
Paint a picture of what that landscape was like and the school environment.
Well, I'll tell you the story of actually getting to Warnkurna. So you had to fly on one of those really little planes.
Little Cessna?
Yes, one of those. And so I was much younger than I am now. And we had stopped at a couple of other communities on the way and those teachers had got off and it was just the pilot and I at the front of the plane. And he goes, I'll do a couple of laps around so you can see it. And we went over and I was like, oh, wow, what's that? The biggest place that I could see with some shiny things, thinking that was the city. And he said, that's the tip. Okay. And then as we landed, before I got off the plane, he turned to me and he said, you don't have to get off if you don't want to.
Oh.
And I was like...
You had an option. Had a choice.
Yeah. And I was like, no, I'm fine and I've got this. And the principal at the time, Josh Butler, picked me up in the troopy and drove me to my house. And the camels had ripped the air conditioner off, so my yard was full of camels and I had this little house and it overlooked these magnificent ranges. I think Warnkurna, by memory, is called the jewel of the desert or the crown of the desert. So all I could see, other than a few houses over here, was just this landscape of mountains behind my house. So I had grown up in Kalgoorlie, so similarities, but I guess the remoteness and the smallness of the landscape was pretty incredible. Yeah.
Where had you come from? So where had you flown from
Kalgoorlie.
To arrive at this? So you come from Kalgoorlie, which is a fairly substantial sort of size place, down into an even smaller one. And am I sort of thinking that the tip is bigger than the town?
100%. Maybe about 3 or 4 times bigger, but yes, yeah.
How many houses are in the town, Stacie?
Oh, look, you're chasing off my memory, but I wouldn't say more than 20.
20 houses.
Yeah.
And pretty flat, except for these beautiful ranges.
Yeah.
Gosh, it's just incredible. What sort of size school? How many children at school?
There were 3 classes. So, and again, we're going back a few years now. So I'm maybe 10 kids in each class. So maybe about 30 kids. Right. Yeah.
So you're a teacher.
Yep.
Plus a principal.
There was myself as a teacher. There was the principal, and then there was another teacher. So there were 2 classes actually. Sorry, 2 teachers. Yeah.
Wow, what a start.
Yeah.
Did you enjoy it?
Loved it. I really, and I guess hindsight's always a beautiful thing. I love it even more now as I look back on it. I think there were certainly times there where it was scary and stressful and I missed home and missed what I thought was normal life.
Yep.
But so grateful that I did it. Best experience and best start to my career.
That's right. I can vouch for that, and I remember my first posting was in Halls Creek, which was slightly bigger because it was on the main drag. Saturday night, I cried myself to sleep.
Yeah.
And just thought, oh my gosh, what sort of decision have I made here? But it is an incredible experience because you just got to rally round.
Yeah.
You just got to come together, and we've got a job to do. And I think that's what actually makes it stronger. And you just find a way.
Yeah.
Find a way through this. Everything's just, okay, we've got one problem, let's find a solution.
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So that would have put you in fairly good stead as in starting in your education career. Now, you're there for 2 years. What would be, say, 3 things that you can still remember that you can take away from that experience that made a difference?
The community, the principal, and the ability as a graduate to gain the understanding of whole school operations and how schools work as a whole from that day one. I think in those, because, you know, you're a team of 3, 4 with the education isn't 5, 6 is with your AIOs and stuff. You don't have committees. You don't have a literacy committee and you don't have a chance to opt out of these things. So from that moment, I wasn't just head in my classroom. I was head around a whole school.
Yeah. I like that point about that. It's, well, one, it's not an opt-out, but it's a small group and you just all get together and you all make a decision together.
Yeah.
So you get ownership immediately.
Yeah.
Okay, everyone agree? Yep. Okay, thumbs up. Right, we're all moving forward.
Yeah.
So that's sort of one of the benefits of a small place, isn't it?
Yeah.
Small community.
Exactly.
And it's this community that I'm interested because it was about community that you got your next step. So you've only 2 years as a teacher.
Yeah.
But tell us the next little step, because this is quite interesting.
Well, so I went back to the city for a little bit and did some teaching and the country teaching. And then I took a couple of roles as deputy principal in the wheat belt.
Right.
Before moving to principal, going back remote again.
Yeah.
And moving to principal at Wananami Remote Community School.
Right. So is that am I got a similar picture as your previous remote, or is it slightly bigger? What does Warnkurna look like now?
It's slightly bigger. So we had 3 classes there, and maybe a slightly bigger community.
Yeah.
But certainly not by much.
Okay.
Wananami, 40 kids.
All right.
Yeah.
So we've gone up about 25%.
Yeah. One more class. Yeah.
Now, you're a principal now.
Yeah.
And given that I'm thinking you've only been out for a few years really to be a principal, 4 or 5 years, and you became a principal, would that be about right?
Maybe a few more than that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Maybe
All right.
7 or 8, but not a whole lot. Yeah.
No, not a whole lot,
Yeah.
but principal nevertheless. Now
Yeah.
you've got to lead the show.
Yeah.
Now, it's about this Wananami Remote Community School. It's about 500 kilometres north of Broome. So it's in
Along the Gibb River Road.
Along the Gibb River Road.
Right in the middle of the Gibb River Road between Derby and Kununurra.
Right.
So Mount Barnett Station.
Okay. Now, did you actually get to drive the Gibb River Road while you were there?
Numerous times.
Numerous
The Gibb River Road became like, you know, the freeway.
Yeah.
So I would drive it 8 months pregnant on my own into, So, it just became another. The street.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
How many Ks would it be? What sort of number of hours to drive that?
I think it was 300 and something Ks from Kupangari to Derby, which is where our Woolies was.
Yeah.
But
Our Woolies.
dependent on the road and time of year, it could be anywhere from 4 hours to 10 hours.
Yeah. Because it's not sealed.
No,
like that.
it's become more sealed, but at the time,
it's quite unsealed.
Yes.
And so this is a space where it wasn't normal for you from the very first get-go. So I think this is quite an interesting story. I suppose it's nearly like your belief that you needed to be at this school and what drove you there. So tell us about the couple of days before you arrived.
Yeah, so it was wet season basically. So you go into Broome and that's where you sort of fly in, and I was put up in a hotel. I went first because, you know, as a principal you start. My partner at the time and daughter, who was going into pre-primary, was also joining me. Principals start before teachers. He was going to be a teacher there. So I went up first, stayed in Broome, and waited for them to come up. And over that sort of period of time, it was raining a lot. Start of the year is wet season for the Kimberley.
Correct.
And there was talk about who was driving out to their community, who was flying out, and what was going to happen. It's obviously our first time going out there. Furniture and all of that was coming who knows when. So you pretty much could only go in with what you could carry. And we were pretty adamant we wanted to drive in so we could get as much of our stuff.
And when you say we, who's we?
My partner and I and
Partner
our daughter.
and a daughter.
And we
right,
also had a 12-week-old puppy because we had
Gotta
no
bring
idea
up
what
the
we
puppy.
were going in for,
Bring a
right?
dog.
So we were just like...
When in doubt,
Yep,
bring a dog.
Get everything you could possibly ever want and take it along. So, and this is including groceries because we're talking wet season, so food trucks can't get out there. It's got a beautiful roadhouse, but they're on dry food at that point, so they can only get in what the food trucks can get into. So we're going to drive in. School car was booked in somewhere else, so we're driving in the hire car. With that, and we started our journey along the Gib. My partner hadn't left Perth much before, so this was his first adventure, certainly this far north, and ever driving on a red dirt unsealed road. I'd done the Gib as a 4-year-old kid with my dad, so in a bit of 4-wheel driving, but off we were in our car. You want me to keep going until we got there?
And now we've got a barrier.
It gets exciting, right?
We get to a barrier.
Yeah.
We need to do something different. It's not going to be as easy as driving in.
Yeah, and so we start driving, and the first however many kilometres are sealed, and then you hit the dirt road and everything, you no longer have, there's no more roadhouses or anything like that. It's just bush and a red dirt road and many crossings. And so before we...
So water crossings, river crossings.
Yes. Yep. And so before we had gone, people had said, whenever you come across a bank of water, make sure you walk through it just to check it out. And if you can walk through it and it's no current, you can sort of drive through it. And so we came across our first one and my partner walked through it, not a problem. We drove through, and as we were driving through, the crossings were getting increasingly deeper and probably increasingly more... strong in the current, and they got to a point where there was one that I crossed and I lost my thong. My thong disappeared, but we still made the decision and we think it's safe, and so shoes are gone, but we got across and we got the car across, and then we came to, which will forever be a special place in my heart, called Bell's Crossing.
Yes, Bell's Crossing.
Yeah,
yes.
And it's 90 kilometres from Kupangari, or Mount Barnett, where Wananami was located. And the water was up to here.
Up to your waist.
Yeah, and you couldn't go anywhere. The current was way too strong. And so we thought, and by this time we'd been driving for about 6 hours.
Right.
We're getting on dusk. So I stood on the roof of the car, got the sat phone out, called my dad first, because that's the person you call, right?
Of course.
When you're in an emergency. And Dad said, don't do it, go back.
Right.
And I went, okay, so we tried to go back. And then the crossings that we had crossed previously
are now higher.
We couldn't go back. So again, we drove back down to Bell's Crossing, and I rang Dad, and Dad's like, eek. So I rang the Crow at the time, and he was like, look, you have to stay with the car. So we're sort of driving between crossings at this point going, what do we do? We got back to Bell's Crossing, and on the other side were some locals who had come down for a swim.
Right.
So Wananami, the school, services Kupangari, the community that it's at, and Dodnan, 30 kilometres one way, and Imagi, I think it's 80 kilometres the other way. And so Imagi is right near Bell's Creek. And there were some locals swimming on the other side, and they said, there is no way you can get your car across. And so at that point, we're sort of shouting across creek to them, and they're like, you and your daughter swim across, and we will drive you to community. Jordan, you stay with the puppy in the car, and everything else that we owned,
at that time,
food that and everything else we were bringing in. So as Jordan got out of the car and he's put the suitcase on head, and this is a boy who hasn't left Perth before, he's carrying a suitcase across his head, and a freshwater crocodile swims in front of him. And so he gets the suitcase across. He, carries my daughter across. He carries me across. And my daughter and I get into the back of Nev, who will be famous for the only tyre man on the Gib River Road. We get in the back of his car. And Nev, who has lived on the Gib for many, many years and is a local there, as the cars do, you don't have seatbelts.
No.
Windows may be optional. And so Indy and I sit on the back seat of a car with two gentlemen who we'd never met in our lives, and waved goodbye to Jordan, who we couldn't talk to for we didn't know when, and continued on to Kupungari to get into our house.
Yeah.
We got there. Thankfully, the house was left absolutely beautiful by the previous principal and her husband. And the houses are so well set up there.
Yeah,
there was TV and bed, and so we were able to feel very comfortable in the house. But I literally had with me a backpack with 2 packs of tiny teddies, and because I'd sent Jordan to get me some clothes for work the next day, what many of us would describe as a T-shirt dress from Kmart, and no shoes.
Beautiful. What a start to being a principal. Unreal. Exactly. I love that. And I love the dedication. I love it. Cross that river. Let's get there. You've got to get there. This is leadership.
Day one. Who can't, you never
can't say, oh, sorry.
Yeah.
No.
That's it.
So when you got there, and it's during this tenure that you really started working around that whole space of community and getting a community together. So that's really the part that I want to dig into, because you talk about co-creating school communities. And to me, when I think about communities, it's it could be this very vague idea of like a few people getting around and maybe helping out with a fundraiser or something. But you wanted your community to be way more higher than that, actually be influential on where the school goes. So tell us about how you started this. What brought you to the thought of, we really need to get our community to be involved in our school more than what it already was?
Yeah, I think like it was a mixture. It was a mixture of me going to school on that first day with no shoes and at a complete loss of first principal gig, really thrown anyway. I went into that day one quite vulnerable, not knowing what to do. That plus a really active community, but a community that has been through so much and were probably at the point where they were like, we're not putting up with anything anymore. And so when that day one, when I had no shoes and my beautiful Kmart dress, and Miss Deb said, you need to meet community on the veranda. And the community said to me, we want this, this and this. And that provided me with some direction, and then it provided me with more direction when I reflected upon it, that night, the next night, and when I was trying to think of the next steps. I thought, if I had come in with my agenda, and quite often we have an agenda as a school and we want to get the community on board with what we want. So we go into a school going, I want community to come on board with this. But this was flipped. The community had given me what they wanted, and when I reflected, it would have been different to what I would have done and tried to get them on board with. And again, I think reflecting, maybe that had been what had happened in that school previously, was people had come in going, this is a really great way school works, come on board, and they had managed to do that, but it wasn't actually what the community wanted. And so this time, starting from having no idea, but them giving me some eggs, going and then just building off those eggs and looking back now, we created something I never would have thought of that was much more magical, powerful, and something now that has grown into I would never have dreamed. And it is still growing despite me being gone for 4 years.
Wow. What would be one of the things, take us back to when you're on the veranda meeting the elders, and can you remember one of the things that they said, this is what we want?
Yeah, I can remember. It was the 3 key ones.
Oh, the 3 ones. Beautiful.
It was very teach our kids to read and write.
Teach our kids to read
and
write.
Teach our kids maths.
Teach our kids maths.
And teach our kids culture.
Teach our kids culture. Well, the first 2 seems like it would be your remit. That's great, because that's what I'm here for. Yeah. And I'm sure culture was there, but culture is going to be a little bit more difficult, because I'm sure you didn't have that at university necessarily. No. You have had some experience beforehand. Yeah. So culture was quite interesting.
And the first 2 as well were actually quite interesting, because again, I'm a big questioner. I'm so curious, and I'm curious to not know necessarily, but to understand. And that when they spoke with me, they spoke with a passion, or it could have been interpreted as an anger. I don't ever see anger as anger. No. I always see there's something else. Anger's the thing that pushes you over the edge, but there's something else under it. And so even the literacy and numeracy, it was around people have come in here and taught that, but they've never had expectations that our kids can do it.
Oh, that's a big
and so that was completely different to what I would have done. As I would have come in. So
maintaining a standard, saying, well, this is where we want to hit.
Yeah,
like, putting it out there.
It was our kids are as good as the city kids.
Yeah.
Treat them like that, and that was because. And I think again, if I had gone in, and as we sometimes do, I would have gone in, let's teach them literacy and numeracy and start where they are and just plod along.
Yeah, just progress them to as far as
the next
they can
point.
go.
And that's what we do, right? Find out where they are and put the next thing and next thing and next. These guys are saying, nah, up here, what would you do up here? Do that and watch our kids rise.
It's nearly like the putting the standard and then backward mapping. Okay, if we're going to reach this, what are all the things we're going to have to do to get to that particular point, rather than the other way, just saying, let's just work from where they are, and where they arrive will be where they arrive.
Yep.
And then it's like a double thumbs up.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that the literacy and numeracy stuff did throw me for a little bit as well, but the culture one was a big one. And I, again, as I always do, talk to me about the culture side of things. And I heard the stories of the community and how culture had been lost due to many of them having to leave community at pre-primary and do schooling. So that's where their parents and elders had fought so hard for Wananami to be built, so they could start doing school. Wananami at that time had just celebrated its 25th anniversary. So these are the parents of the kids now that had gone. Right. So they'd lost culture. They didn't know how to speak their language. They didn't know some of the traditions and beliefs. And so let's bring that in.
Okay.
Yeah.
Rightio. So now you've got a bit of a plan. You've got your three goals you're going to get through. Now you found, interesting enough, as part of that, your curiosity is one of those what I call your superhero strength. But then you started to work on the visions and the values, and you just really started to pull that together. And rather than, I think, you inventing three particular lovely words, you actually had the whole community understand and say, well, if we're going to go somewhere, what does this actually look like? What are we working towards? Is that one of the starting points for you? Let's be clear of how we're going to behave, what the vision is, what are our values to get to that particular spot.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the vision, so we did come in when a business plan had finished and another one was starting. And so the vision was part of one of the first. I think it came, we took some time to build trust and understanding and all of that first before we really got into some of that heavy stuff. And
so we didn't dive into that.
No.
All right. No. So we started with this trust and really getting to understand the community.
Because a vision, talking about the vision and then talking about your values or your priority areas or all of that, you want to have really open and robust conversations there. And unless you've got the trust first, unless you have the ability to go no, yes, then you often may find that the principal or whoever is leading it goes, oh, what about this, and everyone goes,
yeah, nod of the head. Yeah, sounds good. Sounds like you're running the show.
Yep. Yeah. I've got, you're the principal. Great. Yeah, go for it. And I think sometimes that's what we take as people coming on board and community. But if you have the trust and the understanding with each other first, then sometimes when you say that, no, that's not it. And I think we didn't start working maybe on our values and our vision until maybe even second semester. We had a lot of things happen between us all first to develop our understanding of what we wanted that to be.
Yeah. So tell us about you found this, the trust triangle, and Francis Frey has done a bit of work in that space. So tell us about the trust triangle and how that then sparked your interest to say, this is most really a good starting point.
Yeah, look, and what often happens with me is I sort of do things. Brett Hunt came out to do a school review and he put the words out as, you start off doing things, unconsciously just doing it. And then once you become more skilled as a leader, you do it consciously. You make those decisions. And so I think unconsciously I had done these things. And then when I looked back, that's the trust triangle. And that's how I found that. But, the trust triangle talks about being authentic.
Yes.
And being authentic in who you are, the logic side of things, like being credible in proving that you know what you're talking about and having that, and the empathy.
Yes.
And understanding of people's side of things. So I was really authentic in what I knew and what I didn't know. I was incredibly transparent with everything. So I wasn't afraid to share what was bad. I wasn't afraid to share what was terrible and what was good. And I just was really me, and painted a really honest picture of where we were sitting. I knew stuff. And this is the same way I'll approach anywhere. I have a lot of experience. I like to read. I like to learn. But I don't ever go into a school going, oh, I'm going to do this, 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 and this. I sort of think of it more as I've got a whole library of experience back here. But first I'll get to know the people and the situation, and then maybe something from my library will come up. Or maybe it won't. Something completely new will come up and I'll have to learn something new.
Yeah.
And I think that's how I went in. And so this is me. Let's discover the school together. Let's really look at, you know, the data. Let's really look at this. Here's a bit of research.
Yeah.
But then I also listened.
Yeah.
I really worked to understand the people and who they were, the kids, the community, the teacher, everyone involved in that. I wanted to know them, their stories, so I could have empathy and understanding for where they were coming from.
I think there's a when you think of that triangle where you have it starts at what we call logic at the top, authenticity on the right, and then you have this empathy on the left hand side. I think the logic comes fairly, like you've got information, we can read it, and I've got credibility. So that's a fairly easy one to get our head around. The authenticity, for some people, it's just this is me, and I'm proud of that. As Brené Brown talks about being vulnerable, just saying, well, this is me. But for some people, no, they like to hide a bit of that and maybe be the person that they're not really. So that's about a halfer. But I find empathy's, it seems like it should be the easiest of all of them, yet sometimes it's quite the hardest. And these powers that you've got of curiosity and listening and understanding, it takes a bit of effort, takes a bit of work, takes a bit of time. So when you're trying to shape this culture and try and really get that information across, you were happy, I suppose, with the amount of time it's going to take, because, as I said at the beginning, it's not one scheduled meeting and another one and then we're pretty well done. Let's create the brochure. You were prepared to take time to understand, get that empathy side. That then most we made those scheduled meetings so much easier. Do you find that empathy is one of your biggest pieces that you get most traction from? Yeah,
I think it is empathy, and I think you're right in the listening side of things. And and I've said it many times already, listening to understand. But it's listening in those meetings, and sometimes it's listening when there's nobody talking. So
like that.
When when you put the call out and nobody comes, it's listening to that. It's like, and then being curious there. Okay, why did nobody come? Why is nobody talking about this? And then delving curious again. Okay, who can I go ask? Or who are the people that aren't talking? Let me go see them. Let me go. Accidentally crash into them at the roadhouse if I was in Wananami, or if I was, at Riva or North Morley, picking up the phone and calling them. Hey, guess what? I'm Stacy. I haven't seen you around before. How are you?
Yeah. And then it goes back to being authentic, or being actually, well, I'm authentic. I really do want to move this thing through it, so I'm just not going to let it rest after the first hurdle or the first bump. Now, you did have quite an interesting story, which sort of illustrates this, you taking time, is when you were putting together the language program. And you found that a little bit difficult for a while, but you did get a breakthrough in quite in an interesting way. Can you tell us about the lady that lived across the road?
Yeah, so there were, obviously, culture was the first thing from day one, but we had the problem that no one spoke the language.
No.
And so we would put the call out. Again, no one speaks the language. We don't have it. There's no barriers for me. No. So how can we? And so we were emailing, people in Melbourne for dictionaries. We were digging at the back of storerooms for old dictionaries and things like that. And I also have the belief of something is better than nothing and done is better than perfect. So we just went with what we could find. Whatever words were in the dictionary or whatever words people could remember or we could find, those were the words we taught. And so we started with, I think it was 3 words a week that we would do. And we would teach them to the kids. We would put them up at the roadhouse. We'd put them out in our communication home and all of that. And we kept going with that. And we kept going and going and going. And then I was there for 3 years. And the last year that I was there was a beautiful lady across the road who had been there.
Across the road from the school.
Yeah. And some other older ladies who came into town and saw the things at the roadhouse. And they spoke the language, and spoke the language. There were some words that were we had put up at the roadhouse that were incorrect and referenced some body parts and things, and they were having a great laugh at me that I had got it wrong. Yeah. But they also made the comment to me that this culture and language and things like this is something special, when I wasn't the first person that had come in to try this. But many people had said they were going to do something, and then for whatever reason, and often blamed back on community or because they didn't have the people
or the resources, as you found. It's a bit difficult, so we stopped.
Didn't do it. And they stopped doing it. And so I had to show that this was something that we did believe in as a school, and we were going to do it regardless of the way. And so these beautiful language speakers came into school, and when I call the school now, the language program and the community members that are speaking this I can't understand them anymore. So yeah, it popped up.
Yeah. And even at that point, I mean, there's 2 ways, and you know, your beautiful nature of looking at the way things work is, you know, when you found out after 2 years of this person, you just must have wanted to say, what the?
That's exactly what I said. I was like, why didn't you tell me
that? But then their answer was, we just wanted to see if you were going to persist, basically, in their world.
Yes.
But you know what? You have persisted and you've shown us something, so now we're ready to help. And so in they came. And rather than taking that as a negative, and rather than getting upset about that, I'd say you'd just go, all right, well, it just took us longer, but now we're ready. But now, after so many years, that language program is still going. So it doesn't have to be, you don't have to build the Taj Mahal in the first year. No. It's just getting the foundations laid, and let's just see what happens. And I think that's a really good example of it's all right that the answer didn't come in the first one, and that maybe someone else did know at that time. And for whatever reason, which in this case was valid. Yeah. It's all right. Yeah. But where can we move from this point moving forward? Yeah. And then you've got them. And then I dare say when they said we're going to be part of it, I'm sure they would have jumped on board and away they went. And all of a sudden that language program was where it was at. Yeah. So it sounds like, going back to the veranda with the 3, literacy, numeracy and culture in your tenure there actually did increase and did get to a point where those original elders, I presume, actually would have looked at that and said, we actually did something. Would that be fair in saying that?
I think the biggest success and Wananami is an incredible school still. They won the Culture Award at the awards 2 years ago. They're on their second principal since I was there, but it is still amazing. It was community driven. It didn't matter if I left. It wasn't me doing it. And that whole process empowered this community to know the power they have in directing this. They built the school. They knew everything that it was.
So just in that little bit of comment there that you made was in regards to the other principals have been there since you. But now I'm getting that feeling that conversation on the veranda is now more empowering for them to be able to say, welcome, new principal, in a nice manner, but we've already got something happening here and you need to follow through with us. We're going to be a group moving forward. And then hopefully, and obviously has happened, that principal then says, absolutely, I'm on board, show me the way, and then continue the legacy that each principal brings behind, leaves behind, but it is the community like holding it together. And going back to the original, my starting point was and this is really co-creation of a school community.
Yeah.
It's not a principal driven. It literally is for them to, the community, to hold that journey.
Yeah.
And it's that, I suppose, is it the courage at the end of the day for a principal to be part of that and build that space? Because, of course, as a new principal, maybe you want to stamp my authority on this and look what I did. And like you said, this is the way I need to do it. Why don't you follow me?
Yeah.
And that other reverse is, oh, are you already doing something? I'll follow you. Does it take more courage to do that, do you think, to be able to say, I'm with the community more than?
Because courage, the ability to let go, you drop your ego, all of those things, it's not yours, it's ours. So it does.
Ours.
I think it does. It takes a lot to be able to let go and go with the flow. And that, lots of us like this planned out thing and this is where I'm going to get to and I'll bring everyone along with me. I know where we're going and what we're doing.
It's all right, everyone. We've got this.
Yeah.
Trust me, I'm there.
Yeah. Very early on when I first started looking at leadership, I did something with Education Changemakers and they spoke to me about leadership being, if you're on a ship, you might climb the mast sometimes when everyone down here is getting a little bit lost and you might go, hey, I can see something over there. Shall we head that way? But then you climb back down and then you get in there with everyone and you go, okay, let's go this way and we'll do it this how, And I think that's what it is. Sometimes you have to stand up and go, we've still got this and maybe let's head, here's some light. But then you just get down in there with everyone and being down in there with everyone means you are one of them and it's not about power.
No.
It's not about just automatically having this. It is literally, I'm down working with you. What are we doing? That's
right. It reminds me of a great quote by Alan, the now retired Alan Kidd from Kingston Primary School down in Bunbury. And he said at every staff meeting, he just said, just leave your egos at the door as you walk through. And even though that could sound crass, it actually sounds real because I don't need egos in here. I just want people that are ready to work together for a common good. And egos can never be part of that.
Yeah.
Egos cannot leap in and just because it's going to get derailed. And I reckon that's with working with community. And as you're saying, you're on the ship at the bottom. That includes the community being part of that. Yeah. It's not just the educators. It's actually bringing the community together and say, but they still need leadership. Someone still needs to climb the mast and tell us, give us some direction and guide us through into the light where we want. I'm interested in about what does school success look like to you? What at the end of any of your tenures when you move from school to school, how do you look back and say, "Oh, yeah, that was successful"? Do you have a bit of a couple of markers?
I love it when I'm gone and I look back and things are still happening.
Okay, right, sustainability.
Yeah, that for me is a key of it wasn't me, it was us.
Yeah.
That's a big one. I don't know if I have sort of along the way. Obviously, I always, when things are improving and, the things that are measurable, I love Brene Brown's reference to data that is there's stories with souls.
Yes.
So I do love data. That's not a secret by anyone. I do like to see that improve, but I like to see that improve because I know that means Johnny is reading now or Johnny is coming to school because he loves it. I just wasn't
thinking it. I could see he was doing it, but is he doing it?
Yeah, I do love those sort of markers. Success is when there are a lot of names on something and not just mine.
I like that. A lot of names on something, just not mine. And I suppose it goes back to our ego thing. Like this is us. We're all there.
Yeah.
I suppose it could be just the opposite of what you've just said. Is there a reason why schools are underperforming and we don't get there? If you just took your opinion and just say, what are the barriers to schools really being successful in the end?
Yeah. Look, I do think a lot of schools have lost the human to it. I think we try to create, you know, our plans and our documents and all of that without speaking to humans first. And so we either go off research or we go off, you know, this is what is needed and this is how research says it should be done. And I also am a big believer in research, but it's got to match what your community needs at that time. So I do think people need to take a step back and really talk to community, and not talk to get with a preconceived agenda, not even to talk to say, come in and tell me, I don't know, what you want. What does that mean?
Yeah.
Talk. I think the really first step is just have a conversation.
Yeah.
You know, much how like we started to, when we first chatted, tell me about yourself.
Yeah.
Let me just know you as a person, and then you as a community, or you as, and then together build what the school is.
Yeah. It sort of comes back to your curiosity, isn't it? Because when we, as Stephen Covey, and you have mentioned it a few times, and just seek to understand, so then you can be understood. Was one of your 7 habits, and it is about that, taking the time to actually understand the people, the team, the group, and then it makes it a lot easier for you to be able to have that conversation back, and then you understand their needs and where it is. But also you may be able to move quicker with this group, or it might have to take a little bit of time, because what you've now understood is this is going to take us a while to get through this. And that means you're going to bring people along on the journey because you're doing it their way. Yeah. So, I think that beautiful conversation is a great idea. Stops some
burnout and stuff as well. I know, you know, I was at North Morley just up the road for a year, and the school accomplished so much in that year. And we had a school review at the end, and it was interesting. The reviewers said, you guys have done so much, but no one's come in here going, oh, my God, like I'm tired. They still came in with this energy and passion because what they were doing was what came from them. And when you come from the people, it brings an energy and a passion from all these people, and they get so much done because they just they're pumped.
This is it. We're pumped. It brings home that I talk a bit about ownership. You know, how do we get everybody to own all these beautiful documents and lots of words, etc. And it really does come down to conversations, and that it's their words. It's like your community. It's where they wanted to go. Well, if that's where we want to go and it aligns with what I need to do, then it just becomes easier, I suppose. But it does take time and it takes conversations. So what would you have for advice for young educators wanting to become leaders? What would be some of the things that you could tell them?
Ask why at every opportunity.
Ask why at every opportunity. Good.
Every conversation. Just be curious. Every person that you're coming across, whether it be your principal, your line manager, the parent in the class, your kid, just ask why.
Dig deeper.
Really just understand people. If you can understand the person, then you can create paths together that work.
Beautiful. I love that. And what about yourself? How do you, from the very busy schedules, the busy lives that educators lead, what's your downtime? Where's your happy place? How do you sort of chill, stop? Or do you? Do you stop?
It is actually a goal of mine because that's something that I want to do more. I've got a couple of happy places. I love time alone. I love the gym and currently the drive home and listening to a podcast.
You'd be able to listen to this one.
Right. I love a cuddle on the couch with my kids at the end of the day, and I love a wine with my friends. So
beautiful. Friendships, more conversations.
Exactly.
How cool is that? Is there anything else that you want to add to anyone that might be listening?
No, I don't think so. I think education's a special place. It's about people. That's beautiful. The heart of education.
Beautiful. Thank you very much, Stacie Skehan. Absolutely magnificent. There's so much to unpack in that. Give it some reflection of some of the pearls of wisdom, the trust triangle, the curiosity, the understanding of people. Can you put any of these sorts of things into your world that's going to make you an improved, a more aware educator? Be fantastic. Thanks very much, Stacie. Thanks for your time.
Well,
Thank you for listening or viewing the Conversations with Courageous Educators podcast. I hope you take something away that improves the best version of yourself more often. I'm passionate about education and supporting educators in the tough job of nurturing tomorrow's citizens. I follow this passion by delivering staff wellbeing workshops, middle leadership programs, and leadership coaching for educators. If you have 2 minutes and would like to know how mentally fit you are to handle the rigours of teaching, then visit my website www.by-george.com.au. That was www.by-george.com.au, and complete the 2-minute mental fitness diagnostic, which produces a report that affirms your strengths and challenges your growth opportunities. There is a positive ripple effect when educators are the best version of themselves more often. If you believe this as well and would like to implement the change, then be a courageous educator and contact me for a conversation. My details are in the show notes, or email luke@bygeorge.com.au, and that's by-george.com.au. Continue being courageous. Thank you.